Good it to me.
I would like to take a moment to introduce them to you. I'm going to start with Mary on the end here. She has the longest intro, so... Mary fell in love with nerd culture at a young age, first with her mother sharing her love of Star Trek and all things sci-fi. And then, when she discovered in the 1990s the show X-Men, her mother would often buy her comics to read on long family trips in the summer. I'm sure we all know about that, which started her love for graphic novels. As Mary grew, she discovered more nerdy wonders such as Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, fantasy novels like Harry Potter and Name of the Wind, anime, cosplay, and even conventions. For most of her life, she kept her nerd side hidden, as being a nerd was often seen as a bad thing. And a nerd girl was just unheard of. And now she is fully out of the nerd closet and letting her nerd flag fly. And then Crystal is joining us. Crystal Geist? Geist? Gust. Geist. Gist. Okay, I got it. I say it enough times. She's a local fangirl, wife, mother, and works in high school special education. She creates and posts tutorials for crafts, clothing, and accessories based around favorite comic book characters. And I will say that the beautiful top that she's wearing, yes, she made it. And all the way from Reno, Nevada, is Daryl Frazetti. He has a dual background in biology and anthropology. He's an anthropologist and pop culture researcher focusing on cultural themes and fandom cultures in science fiction, fantasy, and comics. He's an instructor at Western Nevada College and part-time human remains analyst for the Nevada State Historic Preservation Office. So I certainly have some questions about that. And assisting me today is my assistant, Brittney.
Hi.
And she is going to be interacting with our panelists, asking them questions. So part of this event is a little bit scripted, but it's totally open to Q&A as well. Okay? So without further ado, I'm going to turn the mic over to Brittney.
Thank you.
Your questions.
Okay.
And you can just pose them like to one person in particular or all of them? All of them.
Okay. Hello. Okay, so how did you guys first get involved into fandoms? So, whichever one wants to start.
Well, hi, first off. Like I said in my little biography, I first got into fandoms when I was really, really young because of my mother and everything sci-fi and Star Trek and Stargate and Star Wars and everything Star. And then as I got older, I was much more into superheroes, Sailor Moon, all that kind of stuff. It was really, really cool, and then just kept going and going and going. And now it's all about Doctor Who, Sherlock, Supernatural, everything and anything.
All right. I guess I grew up liking geeky things. Star Wars was probably one of the biggest things when I was a little kid. I probably wanted to be more of a Ninja Turtle or a Jedi than a Barbie. And it just kind of stayed with me ever since. And now I'm lucky enough where my husband is super into geeky things too. And so when we got together, it just kind of expanded, probably more than both of us thought it would. And we share it with our families and just have lots of fun with it, whether it's video games, comics, movies, or shows, whatever. It just kind of keeps going, I guess, once you get into it.
I probably, I mean, I always read comic books or had, toys and things like that. But I think when I was about 8, the babysitter that we had got me watching Star Trek. And when early cable came out, there wasn't anything on except they put on all the old TV shows. So I grew up watching a lot of the B movies, them and, the old Japanese Godzillas and, all the goofy, Flash Gordons and things like that. So I just started watching all the old Planet of the Apes. I mean, I'm still a huge Apes fan. That's one of my favorite things to do is watch apes, read apes, get all the apes comics. I'm huge on Star Trek. I started going to conventions when I was 12. And it's just kind of continued from there. The cats have uniforms. They have Starfleet leashes, the usual. So I'm pretty normal in that respect. But yeah, it's just kind of snowballed. And quite by accident, I ended up doing work in, pop culture research and teaching some classes on anthro and sci-fi, anthropology of Star Trek, Star Wars. And I give some of these talks at conventions.
Well, thank you very much for that, Daryl. It's fascinating. I don't have any costumes for my cat. I have to work on that. Maybe you can make. Do you make cat costumes, Crystal?
I don't know if my cat will appreciate it.
Well, when I was organizing this event, I thought that I was new to the whole fangirl concept. I had different customers come up and tell me, what is fangirl? And I'd try to explain it to them. And then when I was reading Mary's bio and she mentioned Dungeons and Dragons, it brought me back many years ago when I played Dungeons and Dragons for 3 days straight. And it was fun. I could have just kept going. So thank you for bringing me back to that time. So another question, who are some of your favorite female characters and why?
We'll go back to me. Mary always starts first. Let's see, some of my favorite female characters. Well, my favorite female character from comic books of all time, hands down, would have to be Rogue. Mostly because she can pretty much have any power she wants as long as she, physically can get a hold of the person. And now in the newer comics, she's able to not only control her powers, but she's able to recall powers from previous years that she's touched, 50 billion years ago, I touched Jean Grey, and now I have her telepathic powers for a minute. It's pretty cool. She's also totally connected to Miss Marvel before Miss Marvel came out, and then that's how Rogue got her powers, because she absorbed Miss Marvel's powers. And I just always liked the idea of someone having that struggle of the duality in her own head, because a lot of people that have mental disorders can relate to that. And something that, personally, I have a mental disorder, so that's something I really related to growing up, was someone dealing with these voices in their head and overcoming them and becoming a really strong and powerful female. And so I was always really looked up to that. And then I think the only other female character I can think of off the top of my head was Xena. Xena was always super powerful, she didn't have any superpowers. She was just really good with a sword and not scared of anybody. Because that was really empowering as a little girl. And as you grow up, you see other females and stuff, but those two stick out of my mind every time someone's like, what's your favorite female, or the female that really empowers you? It's those two always pop up in my head.
I think they might be looking at another Xena show. It might have been a rumor, but
Lala says she wants to make another Xena show, so I'm like, yeah.
Within this last week, that just kind of came up.
Yeah, I saw that.
I guess my favorite character is the shirt I'm wearing, Captain Marvel. She is female.
Yeah.
Yeah. Originally, Captain Marvel was a male character. She used to be Miss Marvel, and then a couple of years ago took up the mantle as Captain Marvel. Yeah. And within the last couple of years, she's kind of come to the forefront for Marvel Comics a little bit. Just kind of, I think part of her appeal is that she always wants to be better and do more and really find within herself, what can she do that's going to push her to the next step in her life. And that's something I definitely have always identified with is, what can I do to improve upon myself? And I think that's something that is pretty universal and is a big part of her appeal. And she has a brand new series right now as part of Marvel Comics with the Carol Corps. And it's just kind of fun watching them kind of recruit more women and female into it. So she's probably my favorite. And that's why I made the shirt.
Well, a couple of the ones that I've used in particular that I like, I've used them when I've taught kids college classes. And, and the kids, I try to get them interested in science and math. They have me teach these classes for kids at the college during a couple of the summers we've had. And it's hard to, get them interested in math or science, especially over the summer. So the parents have shipped them off for a couple weeks, and it's here's what you're going to go do. So last year I developed a couple of courses, which one was Science of Superheroes, and one was Science of Supervillains, and I had the Star Trek Star Wars class for them as well. But one of the characters I used extensively, and I pulled from the old TV show, was Wonder Woman. And I think, and then the kids just, you get 8, 9-year-olds, they have no idea. They haven't seen the TV show. They don't even realize that you've got this very powerful, intelligent character. And you can teach them something about science, and you can see this woman in this role, as a scientific person, and it was huge. The other thing that we were able to use her for was discussing her superpowers. Another one that I used, and I used her for weather, was Storm. Well, no, I like Storm, and like we were talking about earlier, Storm is another very intelligent. She presents herself well. She's a strong female figure. She's a leader. And to show that to the kids in class, I think, is important for that alone, but also getting them thinking about how she controls weather and how weather works. So some of my favorite characters have been used for those purposes. And that might be why I've pulled them as favorite characters, too.
Talk nerdy to me. Talk nerdy to me.